All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I hope this makes YouTube. We're going to try. But I don't want to pull any punches. So, Jason Shirka, you're joining me once again. I watched it. I watched Disclosure 3. I got to tell you, man, it's compelling. I mean, every time I watch it, I know those things have to be going on, but there's a governor in my head that just says, not so fast. You can't believe everything you hear, obviously. But if you have a really open mind and you understand just how crucial this is, what's happening on our planet right now for humanity, it all makes sense to me. It all really does make sense to me. And I want to commend you for putting together these this disclosure series and doing this because it needs to get out there. And it's like we're just dropping the information. More and more people are waking up. And is that the whole objective for this series, is to just drop the information and get more and more people red-pilled for the big picture?
First of all, I want to say, I think where you just said that you stand is probably the healthiest place to stand, because you don't know. You know, how do you know that what you're hearing is true? I don't blame you. I don't know what I would do in your position. If I was in the position I was in watching, I'm not sure how I would take it. But I think the healthiest place is to say, listen, I don't know. We don't know exactly what's going on. Let's keep that open mind and see. And whatever happens from that point forward, at least your eyes are open, you're paying attention. And that's where the magic happens, in my opinion. So in terms of the intention of this series, let me start with the fact that it wasn't necessarily, it didn't start as we're doing a series. Again, when I first spoke to you about it, and I told everybody this, it was hard enough for me to get him onto part one. And it wasn't a part one in the first place. It was just, I'm dying to get you on an interview. And it took me a long time. And he finally said, okay. My intention was to make it a series, but I didn't want to tell him that because it was already hard to get him as.
I'm sure he knew your intention.
He knew. He just didn't want to, you know what I mean? So you got to kind of play with him and figure it out, because he also has his hesitancy and all that. So I was happy enough to get him on the first one. Then once he saw the feedback and all that, he's like, okay. And it took me a lot of convincing for the second one, but he said, okay. After the second one, then now he's very open. He's like, listen, let's keep going. I think this is doing well. So
because you got a good response.
Yeah. He's a guy that he's a very normal dude. Forget about the things that he's telling you and his experiences. He's very normal in his demeanor. He's very he fits into the 3D world if you were to meet him. He's not like you meet this guru that you're like, wow. He's just a normal guy. So with that, he has the normal fears of what are people going to say? That's one of the reasons why he doesn't want to reveal his identity beyond privacy and security and all that. He doesn't want to deal with everything that comes with it. So yeah, I think with the feedback that's coming in, he's coming more and more and more open. And I do believe that, number one, I can tell you for a fact, the promise, you will know who he is one day. The question is, are you going to know who he is after he's dead or when he's alive? I think you're going to know when he's alive because of the way that things are going down. But I guess time will tell, and we'll see what happens.
Just for my audience, just to let you all know, so to catch them up to speed, Ray is the alias that you gave someone that is you're conducting an interview with, that has a blurred out face, a hoodie on, gloves. No way you can tell who this guy is. You're disguising his voice. And the whole purpose of this is to inform people about what's really going on, basically off planet, underground, in the tunneling system, with the children. And he's part of a organization called the TLS, the light system, correct?
Right.
The light system, in which he claims that these missions are being carried out for humanity. And the whole purpose is to further evolve humanity or steer humanity in the desired beneficial direction.
Correct.
My question is this. We all know that's not his name. It's not Ray. That's his alias. How do you know this guy is credible? And when I ask that, I mean, is it just from what he says to you, or is he credible because you have seen tangible evidence? You have seen something. With that question, as I pose that question, I want to ask a second question. How do you know he's credible? And does he ever tell you he's about to go on a mission and then goes MIA?
all of the above. I've been told things before they happened and I see them on the news. I've experienced things with him myself. He's not the only point of contact that I have, by the way, in the organization, which, by the way, and I don't mean to get anybody's hopes up with this because I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm working on bringing somebody else, a woman in this case, who works with him directly, who I'm very close with as well, to come to the table on another disclosure interview, this time a different person.
That's involved with Ray.
Yeah, that's involved in the organization. She works with the organization.
TLS. So this organization, TLS, is 100% viable. You're saying it's 100% true. The light system is an actual thing. You have no doubts in your mind.
From my experience, I mean, I've seen it. You know, like it's not about somebody coming and telling me something. I've seen things, I've experienced things, I've been told things. It's a combination of many, many different things going on. And then again, you see it happen. Like he says, tomorrow you're going to see this happen in terms of earthquakes. You're going to see a sequence. Tomorrow that happened. The next day, you're going to see an explosion going on over here, somehow a fire going on. And this is the reason why it's happening. Suddenly you see it. So it started with information, didn't start with experience. It started with information. That was my form of disclosure that he and they were putting me through as an organization. And over the past couple of years, now almost 4 years, but specifically over the past 2 years, it's been more experience firsthand. Everything is there. So it started with information, went into experience. And yeah, I mean, I could say with everything that I've known, everything that I've experienced, mind you, I also come from a place of, I don't accept things very easily. I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to things like that. I come from a business background. I come from a real estate background. I don't come from this background. And if a couple of years ago, somebody came, or a few years ago, somebody came and said that to me, I'd probably say you're a schizophrenic and walk the other direction. So it's crazy claims, but it's crazy claims that were backed up with my experience. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing and I stand behind it.
I've tried to, I watch his interviews and I try to catch him. I try to like see where he trips up. And I don't know if it's just very well edited or how you do it, but I mean, everything he says aligns with what I've heard through other sources. Okay. So it makes sense to me, but you have to have that kind of open mind, and you got to be like a sponge to absorb this type of material and you can't be shocked by it. A lot of people that would watch your disclosure series might just turn it off and say, this is bullshit. I'm not watching this. I can't, this is so out there. Sounds like a movie that the truth is fact. Our reality is much stranger than fiction. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. Let me tell you something. To give it's numbers that people don't see because they're not visible in the way that we put it out. But the disclosure series so far has been seen in over 100 countries by millions of people around the world. So it is gaining traction for a reason, because I think the biggest thing over here is people are afraid of what others will say. So even if they resonate with something, they don't really want to tell people that they resonate with it or it makes sense to them, because they don't want their friends or their family to think that they're crazy. And I've seen it happen all the time. As a matter of fact, I've even done that many times, where you don't want to feel crazy. So you keep certain things internal, and then you kind of just ride the wave because you don't want to be that psychopath among your friends or your family that people are like, that guy is off the wall. Don't talk to him. So I could tell you just by seeing the numbers and the one-on-one feedback from emails, people are with it. People are getting it. People are starting to, even if they don't 100% know what to do with it, they're listening. And that's enough to plant that seed that will come to fruition over time. And I don't know where this series is going to lead. What I can tell you is that, and it's spoken about in Disclosure Part 3, the unique thing about what's going on here is that this disclosure series is not going to just remain on the big screen. This disclosure series will be brought into the physical realm with events that people will see. Meaning, just like I was told certain things and I saw them happen, there are certain things specifically in Disclosure 3 that are being told to the world. And I can tell you that I'm confident they didn't happen yet, but with my experience, I'm confident that those events will happen and all the dots will connect.
He states that in 170 years, well, from 2012, it was what, 180, something like that. And then now we're at 170 years that humanity is going to reach a state of nirvana. Okay.
It says within, meaning it can happen a whole lot sooner.
Okay. We hope it does. We hope it does. But right now we are in the light era, correct? Am I saying that right?
Correct.
Okay. So we're in the age of light where everything's being exposed.
Correct.
Now, my question is this. There's a lot being exposed. We're seeing a lot of the bad actors in the government. We're seeing all the shenanigans they played on humanity for so long. The people that are awake are waking up even more. Some people are just starting to wake up. My question is, how bad does this get before? I mean, 170 years, man. I don't think anybody watching this is going to say, we don't have 170 years. Not at the rate it's going. How bad does he say this is going to get before we reach that nirvana phase?
Well, there are a few prerequisites, call it, that need to happen for certain events to occur. And now this is just from teachings and whatnot, from what I've received from them and him as a whole. The short answer is as bad as we let it get. That's the short answer. The long answer, based on probability and the freedom of choice that we're exercising in the way that we're exercising right now, we're waking up, but not quick enough. Meaning, I don't mean to be like the bearer of bad news in any way. It's just, we're going to need to get smacked harder if we want to wake up billions around the world. And it's just a fact. It's a fact of nature of what we're seeing. Because you still see, you would have thought that with everything that's going on over the past couple of years, a lot more people would have awakened. And a lot of people did, millions around the world. And people are starting to question things. But I think we still need more for what we're seeing. And I'm just speaking based on my observation. I'm sure a lot of us may agree on that. We still need more. Now, there are certain positive events that will happen. The question is when. Events that will reveal a lot of things to the world, that will wake up the world as a whole. The question is, why can't those events happen right now? And it's because there are certain prerequisites, just like you can't go to 11th grade from 6th grade. You got to go through 7, 8, 9, and 10, because you're not going to understand what high school is teaching you if you go from 6th grade. So we got to go through this process. How quick we graduate each test and class, it's completely up to us. This has nothing to do with an authority telling us, now you're ready, now you're going to get it. It has everything to do with what are we willing to do and really acknowledge and see right before our eyes.
That is why it's so agonizingly painful and frustrating for people who are already awake to have to witness this take place. That, the people that have prematurely woken up, or whatever you want to say, the ones that are awake, probably my audience, your audience, the ones that are already on board with all this, it is so painful to have to wait for the sheep to wake up when there's a chance some of them never will.
The best example I would give is, call it like you're on a basketball team. If you're on a basketball team and you want to get to the finals, it's not good enough that you know how to shoot a three-point shot. It's not good enough that you're good in your position on the team. You may have a few people on the team that are great, but if the team isn't working together, you're not getting to the finals. It's just not going to happen because you're not going to do what needs to be done to get to the finals as a collective team. And that's how we have to start seeing ourselves. So we've been dividing ourselves between the sleepers and the people that are awake, when we have to understand that we're literally on the same team. So what's the job of the people that are waking up? It's to help others see what's going on in front of them.
You know what's crazy is, and it's never been so polarized, especially when Trump got into office. It's never been so, the obvious has never been so polarized, and to the point that you can see it with your own two eyes, as in people that are still walking around with this. Yeah. It's like you can identify the sleepwalkers now. And that's what is so amazing about all this. The sleepwalkers are still, they're out getting this, they're out wearing these, and you can identify it now. You can plainly see as day where someone's awakening is.
100%. And in a way, that's a really good thing, because it saves us a lot of time. It gives us a lot of indications. It shows us who's who on the surface. And then how we want to take action with that is up to us. A few years ago, you didn't know the potential of certain people because the conditions didn't arise to show that potential. Now the conditions are here to show where everybody's really at in a very transparent way. So you can choose, do I want to associate with this person? Do I not? And it's not a bad thing if you don't want to. You have your own free will to be friends with whoever you want, but you now know. So listen, I think, and I've always said it, the past few years have been a blessing because we're waking up. It doesn't mean it's not hard, but it's a blessing. Are the next couple of years going to be easy? Hell no. No way. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they are, because it's obvious that they aren't. Because when you go through that awakening process, there's a lot of punches and smacks in the face. But ultimately, we're getting to that place. So I think when it comes to this series, however it continues to evolve, that's the intention. The intention is to help others see without trying to convince anybody. Pay attention. There's never any convincing. I don't care if you believe it or not, because my intention is not to make you believe something. My intention, my job, my role, as all of our roles is, we're the messengers. That's it. We give the message. We're the mediums and conduits of that message. What people want to do with it is what people want to do.
Yeah, don't kill the messenger.
And that's it. And it's all. And there's nothing else that we can do other than raise that awareness, give the message, put that message out there, and it's up to each and every individual how they want to receive that message and what they want to do with it with their own free will. We got to respect that. And that's it. And we continue creating that world that we want to create. It doesn't have to be this like real difficult thing that we're always wrestling with. There's a harmony in this too, where we acknowledge, we accept, we do our best, and we continue moving forward. And if we do that, it actually becomes a lot more full of ease in a way. It doesn't mean it's not painful. It doesn't mean that I don't look at what's going on in Shanghai and it makes me want to cry. It does. But it's happening. Now, what can we do? Raise awareness, move forward.
And you know, right now, our country, we're getting ready to face massive food shortages. We're a crisis like we've never seen. All these things are the deep states in the deep state manual, you know, to force us into this great reset where they want to take us. They're going full speed ahead. And we understand that they'll be blaming the food crisis. They'll be blaming these engineered crises on things like Putin, like, what hit us in 2020. Everyone knows what that is. The big bad C, the boogeyman, you know what I mean? So I don't like to say it on here because it's but they have their boogeyman in place to blame everything on that they're getting ready to engineer, which is, I'm hearing food supply factories, processing plants are burning down. There's things that are happening right in America. I think there's like 16 of them that have gone down. I interviewed Jim Willie about that, and he said 16 food processing plants have burnt down. One got hit with a plane. It's just crazy. What does Ray say about this? This is obviously their blueprint, engineering our crisis to take us in the Great Reset, that they'll blame the fires that are happening in New Mexico, the fires that are happening in California. They're going to blame that on climate change. That's what they'll blame this on. Oh, it's just getting too hot. It's just too hot. Bullshit. But they're engineering these crises. What does Ray say? How long is this going to take? Because he talked about natural disasters. He's talked about blocking them, deterring natural disasters, that the deep state, these people have endless pockets to create kind of whatever kind of havoc they want. Natural disasters, fires, the whole thing. What does Ray say about this?
As you heard him say multiple times, there's nothing that's a coincidence. It's all planned in advance. And I think that's hard for some people to gather because most people aren't bad. Most people aren't evil. So it's hard to even think, how could a person be that evil? So whenever, by the way, just a side note real quick, whenever somebody says that's impossible, people wouldn't do that. I actually see that as a sign of purity in that person, because they can't even comprehend the fact that somebody is capable of doing it because they're so incapable of doing something like that. So it's also, there's a beauty to being naive in that way, but we got to be aware. So yeah, he says that there are no coincidences, especially when it comes to politics. There are no coincidences. All of this was planned beforehand. There are a lot of wrenches thrown in their plan, like when they stop certain natural disasters. When I say they, I'm referring to TLS and other organizations. As a matter of fact, as you'll hear in Disclosure 3, and as you heard, there were, I think he said 3 between January and March, 3 man-made artificial tsunamis that were created with the intention to hit the East Coast of the United States, specifically New York and Boston Harbor. Why? To create a disruption in the economy, to destroy the economy, to do exactly what you just said that the food shortages are doing. It all connects to one very simple thing. How do they control without imposing their will upon us in a very obvious and apparent way? They have to create an emergency, in many cases, a global emergency. So now we all have to come together in a form of government and then take control. What do we call that? We call that one world government. Only this one world government poses to be helpful to you. And what they're really doing is what he calls problem, reaction, solution. That's not the first time it was said. PRS. You create a problem to induce a reaction that they want us to react in a certain way. So we ask for the solution. The solution is always take away money, take away liberty, take away freedom, impose, suppress, do whatever that they can in a way that's very intelligent, because they're not doing it in a way saying, we're going to take your power. They're creating circumstances where we say, please take our power and protect us. Here. And it's a genius way of doing it. But the moment we become aware of that PRS, that problem, reaction, solution technique that's been going on for a very long time, right now, food shortages, natural disasters, climate change. He says the climate's changing, but not because of what they're saying. It's because it's being created. They're doing certain things. So all in all, there are no coincidences. And if we understand that very stance of PRS, problem, reaction, solution, it starts with awareness to understand how they're doing what they're doing, to take that first step to make sure that they can't do it anymore. Because if we don't buy the BS of what they're trying to impose upon us, they lose all their power. And they hope that we don't.
Right. And what he says on there is that you need to first understand the mentality of a psychopath. So these people seek power. A psychopath seeks power. I was in the boxing game, the boxing world for so long, and I was surrounded by these people.
Yeah.
And I had to learn their mentality. I was a killer in the ring, but outside the ring, I was like the nicest guy. I was always shaking, but these people that are in business at the top echelon of boxing are psychopaths. So I had my taste of psychopaths. He says we have to eliminate all the psychopaths. How hard is that going to be? How hard is eliminating? When you say something that broad, like we got to eliminate all the psychopaths, it's like, how hard is that mission going to be to actually try to eliminate? And that's mostly everybody in power, because psychopaths seek power.
Correct. To be fair, he can do it in 10 days. There's been a plan already put together. The question that we got to ask is, why isn't TLS letting him do it? He's actually proposed a 10-day.
Okay, are they compromised? That's my next question.
So I'll explain. He proposed a 10-day and a 30-day plan. You literally take them out. You don't need guns. You don't need violence. It's done through techniques of, it sounds crazy, but you can induce heart attacks. You can do things like that and just take them out. Now that's a very 3D way of doing it, where on the surface, I agree with you. It sounds like it makes sense. Now let me explain where TLS is coming from. That will not actually do anything, because they're not the problem. We have to zoom out for a second and understand what's the real problem here. And I'm not going to name names here, but if we took out the people that you're referring to, would it really solve the problem? And the answer is no, because they're just going to be replaced. So how do we solve the problem? You solve the problem by changing the awareness of the masses. And when you change the awareness of the masses, those people will have no power. You don't even have to take them out. You don't have to do any of that.
That's a longer process, but that's what I was going to say. Correct. It's a longer process, but it's also necessary for human development, human evolution, spiritual evolution. Masses have to wake up.
Now, there's another side to it also, which he speaks about in Disclosure 3, the fear of retaliation, meaning TLS does whatever they can, but they don't want to do more harm than good in what they do. So there's also this idea of retaliation. If they do certain things, what will the retaliation from that dark side be? And would the retaliation do more harm than good? And the example that he gives is it's almost like Russia has nuclear bombs and America has nuclear bombs. And nobody will use it on each other because they're both afraid on each other. And he says, in a way, it's a good thing because they both have this thing, but they're afraid of retaliation, so they'll never actually use it. And he says it's kind of the same thing here. Now, can it get to a point where they may go and take that route? The absolute last resort. I'm not saying that is an impossibility. It's the absolute last resort. If there's no other option whatsoever, then they may resort to something like that. But that is not an option on the surface of their book because it's not going to do anything big picture. If they knew that to stop something, taking out somebody would stop something really big, and it was allowed in the big picture without infringing on free will, I'm sure that they would do it. And they've done it. But it's a last resort. So his way is what many people may agree with, of take them out and finish the job, only to understand that doesn't finish the job.
You know, he talks about some of the missions that TLS does. And one of the missions, and this is a very touchy subject for a lot of people, but is rescuing children. Okay. Yeah. And from the tunneling system. Now, we got to be very vague on this because I want this to go on YouTube.
Correct.
Is it only TLS doing those rescue missions, or is our military involved as well?
Military is involved. TLS uses the military many times. What the military knows of who they're working with, I don't know. I know that they don't know that they're working with TLS. I don't know what the cover story is, but there are other good organizations working like TLS doing the same exact thing. Sometimes TLS works with other organizations, not military, but other organizations to do certain things to help. So there's collaboration in many ways as well.
So staying very vague on this, because these children cannot survive after being brought up because of the atmosphere, right? They're used to do a different.
No, not all of them. Some of them could.
But they get some. But he stated he takes some off planet. That TLS takes them off planet. Okay, can you explain that a little further? But be vague.
Sure. Big picture. A lot of people always ask where are all of them if so many were taken out. Yeah. So that's where extraterrestrial life comes in. Extraterrestrial life does work with TLS, and I know that may sound crazy, but again, it's just a fact. You know, they work with them on a first-hand basis, physical. I'm not talking about non-physical things here. They're in their offices, they're in their headquarters, they work together, and they're here to help. They're here for good purpose. So in many cases, these beings, if you want to call them that, extraterrestrial beings, whatever it is, have a very, very high form of technology. In many cases, spiritual technology, energy work. A lot of people speak about med beds. Their technology surpasses med beds. Med beds it's like child's play compared to what they actually do in terms of healing and whatnot. So they take them to different places, different planets in this case, specifically throughout 2020 and 2021, where those were really hot operations that were going on all around the world. And they're still going on, just not as much. That was a very big focus in 2020 and 2021 to help those children with like different healing modalities and techniques. Now, a lot of people ask, and this is where I'll stay vague and also move on to the next topic. A lot of people ask, what about their parents? Most of them don't have parents because they were created down there. We call that cloning, correct.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
There's technology ever since the 80s. I think it was the beginning of the 90s where they started using that technology down there. If you pay attention to the numbers of children being kidnapped every year, which is a huge amount, by the way, 800,000 in the United States every year alone. A lot of them are found, but that's the numbers that we're talking about in the United States alone reported. So imagine what's going on around the world. Okay, but big picture, you're talking, the reason why I bring that up is because if you look at the numbers, they've been decreasing ever since the 90s. And they've been decreasing since the 90s because they don't need to take as many, they can create.
Let me ask you this. Have we made a pretty impactful dent on the infrastructure of these tunnels, or are we still behind the ball? Because how much of a dent have we made on this infrastructure? Has he said anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, many of their operations were to actually blow them up with explosives, which were done. One thing I'll give you guys, if anybody wants to see physical, tangible proof or whatever that means, is go to usgs.com. It's the USGS website. It's pretty much the global database of recorded earthquakes. And what you're going to see is there are earthquakes happening all around the world all the time. But specifically over the past few years, there's been a very, very high degree in ratio, very high, like 1 in 4, happening at exactly 10 kilometers. Now, let me tell you what happened to prepare you for those who want to go down this rabbit hole so you know what to expect. You're going to see that the USGS website came out with a claim saying that when they don't know the exact depth of an earthquake, their standard assumption is 10.0 kilometers. However, what they're not going to tell you is that changed from a standard of 33 kilometers in 2020 when all of this started happening. In other words, it was a cover-up. Now, the reason why I know that is because I was told before these sequence of 10-kilometer earthquakes started happening. Literally, I was told. That was one of, back to what you asked me in the beginning of this show, I was literally told on specific dates, look, you're going to see this is where it's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. Why 10 kilometers? Because for whatever reason, a large ratio of their systems are at exactly 10 kilometers. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the case, but they were taking them out at exactly 10 kilometers, not 9.9, not 10.1, 10. And that's what they did. So throughout 2020 and 2021, but specifically at the end of 2020, you would see 25 to 33% of the earthquakes happening around the world out of thousands happening at 10.0 kilometers.
You know, and but I know what you're saying is true because I've had Gene Decode on my show showing the map of the earthquakes happening and the kilometers that they're happening at. Yes. And he went into great detail in explaining that to my audience. So that lines up perfectly with what I've heard.
Yes.
Let's move on to the energy points. Okay. He talks about 36 energy points on the planet. He said one's in New Mexico. You got to tell me where that one's at in New Mexico. Can you say any further on here?
I can.
Like, what did he tell you off camera? You got to tell me what energy points there are in America, at least.
Okay.
And what they're used for.
Okay. So big picture, let me start. There are 36 main points, energetic points, vortexes, whatever you want to call them, that TLS uses for work. In many ways, as he explains in Disclosure 3, part of it, in terms of how they're used, is they'll go to those places to either do work from there, energy work to impact things around the world, or they'll go there to get a specific energetic charge and then go on the operation that they need to go to. So it can increase their vitality. It gives them power to do things that almost like using Earth's energetic grid to charge and then go and do what they need to do around the world. Or in some cases, they do it from those points. So interestingly enough, these numbers are not random. 36 is 18 times 2. The reason why that's important is because if you go down this rabbit hole of numbers, numerology, gematria, and things like that, the number 18 represents life. Now, I'm aware that a lot of people, when they hear gematria, may associate that with something satanic or whatever it is. No, that's what psychopaths use because it's a form of technology. But that is not satanic. It can be used for negative purposes, for energetic manipulation, just like a knife can be used to kill somebody. It can also be used for very positive purposes. And it always was used for very positive purposes. It was just misused by understanding that awareness of how it works. So the number 18 represents life. By the way, if you pay attention to 666, what everybody calls evil, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. That was something that was inverted by the psychopaths. There is no such thing as a bad number. There never will be such thing as a bad number. It doesn't exist because in the source, it doesn't work like that. It's every number has a purpose.
They try to intercept the meaning of the number.
Correct. Just like today, what's good is bad and what's bad is good. It's all inverted all the time. All right. Fluoride is good for you. You know the truth behind that. Aluminum in your deodorant, it's great for you. You know the truth behind that. And then everything that's actually good, they've inverted also. Take a type of diet of eating. They've turned it around completely to a point where today people are actually under the assumption where vegetables are bad for you. I've heard that.
Yeah.
They're like, vegetables are bad for you.
No, they're saying meat is bad for you.
No. So now there's a whole inversion and also taking advantage of what veganism was really about. With now you're Impossible Meat, you're Beyond Meat, that's garbage. But they're taking advantage of movements to completely confuse people. So back to the numbers, even take the number 13. We've been indoctrinated to be afraid of it. We believe that it's an unlucky number. 13 represents love. Now, where am I getting these conclusions from? If you go back to one of the ancient languages that has nothing to do with religion, by the way, Hebrew. Hebrew is not a Jewish language. Hebrew was adopted by the Hebrews before they became Jews on Mount Sinai, according to history. But it was used by the pharaohs and it was used by other races all around the universe. Hebrew, Aramaic, Sanskrit, those were languages that were not created, they were discovered. English was created. Hebrew, Aramaic, they were discovered because they're based on the tones of the universe. They're based on frequencies of creation, on whole frequencies of creation. They're not distorted, they're structured. So 18 represents life, and that's where the word in Hebrew, chai. Chai means life in Hebrew. If you take the gematria of that, you get 18. Ahava means love in Hebrew. If you add the numbers of those 4 letters, you get 13. So that's just to connect the dots to show you where I'm getting that from. That's super surface, by the way. This goes super deep. So 36 energy points is 2 times life. Okay, that's it's not a random number that just started. Now, he also says that there are 1,800 subpoints. 1,800 again. It's 100 times life. 100 also deduces to 1. By the way, if you take the frequency of the sun, I forgot the exact number, it's like 5.28, whatever hertz, and you add those numbers up, you will get to a sum that when you add them up, you're going to be left with the number 1. So it's all very interesting scenarios here. But to the 36 points, I know New Mexico, I don't know because I didn't ask him where it was. I know Mount Shasta is 1, Easter Island is 1, Bora Bora on the tip of the center of that mountain that you see in Bora Bora is 1.
Tibet has to be 1.
I don't know. I didn't ask. I'm sure. I'm not. I don't know. The ones that I do remember, so those are the ones I can speak on, is I know there are 3 in Israel. Haifa, the Dead Sea. The point in the Dead Sea is under the water, by the way. Over the past many years, it's been drying up. And it's going to continue drying up. And there's going to come a point where that point is revealed. You will be able to see it. Right now, you can't see it because it's underwater. So the Dead Sea holds 1, which, by the way, makes sense because it's the lowest physical point on Earth that is not underground. It's the lowest point below sea level that is not underground. I think he said the North Pole is 1. The South Pole feeds off of the North Pole. So yeah, there are 3 to my knowledge in the United States.
Well, when you find out the one in New Mexico, tell me.
I'll ask you. I'll ask you. Yeah.
Yeah, ask me, I want to. Please.
I will. I got you. So in the United States, Mount Shasta, Utah has 1, I think in Zion National Park, and Mount Shasta. And then there are a bunch all around the world. I know in Australia.
Did he say something about the Dome of the Rock?
Yes. So the Dome of the Rock is the most powerful one because the Dome of the Rock has something. What is the Dome of the Rock? Before it was a religious site, it was a very spiritually significant site. The dome today is a mosque. It's a Muslim site. Before it was a mosque, it was the first and the second holy temple of the Jewish people. Before it was that, it had nothing to do with religion because religion didn't exist yet. We created it after the fact, and it came to our awareness in the way that it did after the fact. Now, the Dome of the Rock is a dome over a rock called the foundation stone. Why is it called the foundation stone? Because it's believed by many mystics and even religions, and also, by the way, TLS holds this, but not in a religious way whatsoever, that the foundation stone is the physical geographical location where creation as we experienced it emerged out of, meaning the intangible became tangible, meaning that Earth is a very unique planet because not only does it hold the energetic center of the planet, but it also, the Dome of the Rock, but it also holds the energetic center and core of the universe that is infinite, physically speaking, in the physical realm. So that point is a very, very significant point. By the way, for anybody watching this right now, go to YouTube and type in UFO Jerusalem Dome of the Rock 2014. I think it was in 2014 or 2011. And of course, they're going to tell you it's fake. And it's
I've seen that. The light.
Yes, there was an orb of light.
Yes.
This is a craft that went right over to do something energetically speaking and zoomed out at literally beyond the speed of light. You saw it warp and it just left.
So it was accessing the energy.
I don't know exactly what he was doing. I know that that was a real situation because I've spoken to a few people within the organization about that specific thing, but we didn't get deep into it. So that point is very relevant to not just us as human beings, but extraterrestrial life as well. It's important to life as a whole because of its power. Now, underneath that point, underneath the Dome of the Rock, which is also underneath the Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock is above the Western Wall. And underneath both of those things, there are very sacred objects that are buried under there, that have been buried under there thousands of years ago. The Ark of the Covenant, the staffs that we call the Egyptian staffs, the Ankh, the one that looks like a snake. I think there are two down there, and many, many other things that are buried down there that at some point will be revealed. These are one of the positive events that I'm talking about. At some point that will be revealed and shared with the world once we meet certain prerequisites to be able to handle that and be responsible with it. We need to get to a certain point for something like that to happen. And once it does, you're going to see a very big positive change in the world.
Will that be at the point of that humanity reaches nirvana, or what happened before that?
I think a lot will need to happen before something like that happens. I believe that it can happen according to what Ray says in Disclosure 3. He believes that it can happen within the next couple of decades, meaning within the next 20 to 30 years. It can happen a whole lot sooner. It's all depending on what we choose to do. How do we choose? Are we going to go back to sleep after this whole chaos ends? Or are we going to continue the momentum that we have and continue waking up? And that event will happen. That's what I mean by this series will not remain on the big screen. This series will end up in the physical world with everybody seeing what was spoken about in the series will happen. And it's on the record, on camera for everybody to be able to connect the dots once it does. So it's just a matter of time till people start seeing all of these things happen.
I urge everybody to watch Disclosure 3. Disclosure 4 is coming. Can I say that now?
Yes, you can.
All right. So I've seen Disclosure 2 and I've seen Disclosure 3. Both are epic. You're going down the rabbit hole, folks. You're going down the rabbit hole. It's a little uncomfortable, but for a lot of people like me, I'm a sponge. I absorb it. I question everything. I'm always skeptical, but at the same time, it's not hard for me, it's very easy to believe that this is happening on our planet. There's so many unanswered questions. And I think you do a good job by bringing people, well, specifically Ray, onto the show and asking the hard questions that people want answered. So I want to commend you at that. I think you're doing your job as an American, as a patriot, as a philanthropist. I really want to thank you for that. Where can people go to watch Disclosure 3?
So as usual, and this will be the case forever, the Disclosure series is free for the world. As a matter of fact, I'm not even allowed to charge for it because that's a TLS thing. Okay. Nothing over here has to do with that. So Disclosure 3 is available to watch and will be available to watch on April 26th. So in a couple of days, 4/26 at 4:26 p.m. Again, those dates and times are given to me. That's not something that I choose. So 4/26 at 4:26 p.m.
Using the dates.
Correct. It's all numerology for the benefit of the reception of something like this from the masses. And you can watch it on unified.tv/free-library. I can give you that link also if you want to put it below. And it's there. You can watch Disclosure 1 there. You can watch Disclosure 2 there if you want to catch up before Part 3 comes out. And this is about, when it comes to Part 3, it's about an hour and 45 minutes of many, many, many different topics that are just condensed and covered. So I encourage you all to watch it more than once. And remember, it's not about believing it or not. You may be put in an uncomfortable position. Don't worry about that. Just don't even worry about believing it or not. Just listen to it and just let it sit there. You know, just let it be there, and things will happen. You know, and whether you come to your own conclusion of you think it's a bunch of bullshit or you agree with it, either way, that's fine, because we have free will to be able to come down to our conclusions. Again, I don't take any of it personally. I'm just sharing what I know and what I've experienced because I truly believe, and I know that it has just this potential to impact humanity in a positive way. But I don't expect anybody to receive it one way or another. Do you? I encourage you all to send in your questions, skeptical questions, support specifically the skeptical ones, because those are the most important ones. That's how we continue this. So send them all in. You'll also see an email on that website on unified.tv. And
how do you spell unified? It's not the way people think. It's UNY, right?
No, UNIFYD.
Okay.
.tv. So
UNIFY.
Correct.
Okay.
UNIFYD.tv. On the free library section, Disclosure 3, you can also watch 1 and 2. Enjoy it. And if you want to support the platform, by all means, but this series is free for everybody.
Thank you, Jason. And hey, I'll probably get out to Miami to see you pretty soon, buddy. So
you got a place to stay.
A lot more to talk about.
Awesome.
Thank you. And you're welcome on my platform anytime, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. I'll keep in touch.